we do want to have a lot of kids, so I do want to get my cycle back, get my hormones regulated so we can have another baby. You don't have to follow these arbitrary rules and routines and patterns and things, but that there are a few things that help. Lots of questions on weaning, day weaning, night weaning, when, how, what have I done? So I'm going to try to tackle that whole topic in this video. A lot of people seem to, when they wean, they either do it all together or they do nighttime first, not day. So lots of questions why I do daytime first. For me, it's just way easier, probably because I still bed share. So when Francis does like kind of wiggle awake or whatever it is, I can just nurse him and he falls right back to sleep. And it's just so much easier for me. Once I cut that night weaning out, I have to move on to different ways to get them soothed at night. And it's usually a lot more, I don't know, like not really hands-on, but I usually have to get out of bed and it's either rocking or walking with them. So the sleep is much more interrupted for me. So that's part of the reason I day wean first. The other reason is because I wean to try to get my cycle back, I nurse so much more during the day than I do at night. At night, at this age at night, I nurse him to sleep at the beginning of the night, obviously, when he goes to sleep. That's probably his biggest nurse of the night. Throughout the night, it really is only, I don't know, between 1 and 3 times he'll nurse. And they're not like big nurses. It's usually just to soothe himself back to sleep. So they're pretty brief. So hormone-wise, when I cut out the day and keep the night, I'm only really nursing a couple times. Because the goal is trying to get my hormones back and going, I just cut out during the day. And that has worked for me in the past. It worked with Cashin and Charlie. I day weaned, continued nursing them at night, got my cycle back within 2 weeks. It's not gone that way this time. I still do not have my cycle back. I weaned him. He's 14 months. I weaned him at 12, so it's been a couple months. Still don't have my cycle back. At this point, I'm just kind of accepting it. I don't really know what's going on. There's not much I can do until I feel like he's fully weaned, because it could very well be that this time the day weaning is just not enough and I'll have to night wean him too. I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm very much the kind of person who is just going to kind of take it as it comes, and I'm just not ready to night wean him yet. So I don't know, just kind of winging it to see when the right timing for that is. Now for the bigger and for me harder transitions of whether it's night weaning or getting them to not sleep with me, those kinds of things, I really try to not force anything too much, because those things are harder for the baby, and in turn they're harder for me. So sometimes I'll try to come up with a plan, or I'll try to make something happen. And if it's really difficult, if I'm having a really hard time, if the baby is having a really hard time, then I'll just kind of say it's just not time yet, and I'll give it however much longer. It's happened to me so many times where I'm like, I'll just try again in about 6 months. And in 4 months, they've done it themselves. Like, it's been a natural kind of weaning or transition. So that's one thing I've really learned about. It is funny too, because I don't have this anymore, but I had it the most with Cashin, still a little bit with Charlie, where you kind of think like they really should be doing this by this point. So I need to do this, where it's like, that's not really true. Every kid is so different. And so I think removing those kind of like arbitrary expectations is really helpful. Like, Charlie will still drink milk through the night sometimes, and he's 3.5. And it's fine. It's actually probably good for him. He needs the calories. We do the raw milk, so that's actually good on his teeth and for, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, just removing those like arbitrary things where it's like, oh, your baby's 1 and he's still in bed with you. Well, he really should be getting into his own bed. Well, why? Is it working for you? Is it working for your family? Is anyone suffering because of it? No. Then you're good. So that's one big thing that I've learned. It started with thinking I had to sleep train Cashin when he was 6 months. Why? I don't know. That's just kind of like what people did. We tried like 2 nights of that, and it was awful. And Kyle was like, why? Like, it's not like you have to get up and go to work tomorrow. Isn't it okay that you still nurse him through the night? Like, who cares? And I remember when he said that, I was like, oh yeah, like this is what I do. Like this is my thing. I'm a mom. And right now I wake up a couple times a night to nurse him. Who cares? And eventually he just kind of stopped. Now Cashin did take a pacifier, which brings me to night weaning. That was I really digressed there. But so many of you are wondering how I do the night weaning. And I will tell you what, I do not have a one-size-fits-all formula for that by any means. It has been very much by the seat of your pants thing for me. Cashin was pretty easy. He also had a pacifier though. He's the only one who had a pacifier at that age. So that helped because I would offer him his pacifier or have a bottle of water for him through the night. So when he wanted to nurse, first I would see if he would take the pacifier. If he didn't, then I would give him a sip of water, then maybe the pacifier. Sometimes I'd have to get up and walk with him for a little bit. And that was how we did that. Now I wouldn't recommend doing the pacifier just because now I know pacifiers are not good for the development of everything. Jaw, airway, tongue posture, everything like that. So I wouldn't recommend doing the pacifier. With Charlie, he actually never took a pacifier. So he was he harder? It's all kind of a blur. So what happened with Charlie was I got to the point with him where his night nursing, he was, I want to say like 1.5, and he was still nursing in the night. But it was the kind of thing where he would wake up so many times a night, have to nurse back to sleep, but it wasn't like the deep latch nursing. It was more of like the suckling, not really fully nursing, but just kind of the soothing to get back to sleep. And that, like sensory wise, became really difficult for me. It was really uncomfortable. My sleep was just becoming awful because I wouldn't have anxiety, but I would be like just thinking about that I would have to nurse him when he woke up and how uncomfortable it was for me. And I remember we were on a trip when it was getting like really, really bad. And I remember saying to Kyle, when we get home, I'm night weaning him. Like I just can't do it anymore. We got home. I just didn't do it because it's a difficult thing to do. You have to be kind of disciplined and know that you're going to have a few rough nights of not sleeping. So I kind of put it off. And then a few weeks after we got home from the trip, I found out I was pregnant with Francis. And I remember saying, okay, this is it. I'm night weaning him. I am not going to be going through first trimester horribleness and waking up constantly through the night nursing Charlie. Close that door. So what happened was once I found out I was pregnant with Francis, I said, that's it. There just happened to be a night where he woke up only one time, and it was like in the morning to nurse. So I remember saying to myself, okay, he kind of got himself through that night already with not nursing. So I'm going to just like kind of build off that momentum, and tonight I'm not going to nurse him. And basically you just have to be ready to do anything you need to do to get him soothed and back to sleep without nursing. And it's going to be, it depends on the temperament. For Charlie, it was a few rough nights. With Cashin, it was much smoother. But you hear different experiences all the time because kids are just so different. So I just had a few nights with Charlie where I had to be up and walking with him for, 15, 20 minutes until he fell back asleep. And then he was still in bed with me. So that's kind of how I did it with Charlie. Had those few rough nights. And honestly, I don't even think it was a few. It was really only one or two where I just had to soothe him. Now, I thought it was going to be the kind of thing with Charlie where I was going to have to like go stay the night at my in-laws' house, and he was going to have to get through the night with Kyle. Because if I was there, nothing would soothe him except for nursing. That's like, I was gearing myself up for so long that this was going to be the case, and it was going to be so hard and so difficult. And because I did try to go a little more at his pace, it actually ended up being okay. I didn't have to do anything extreme like that. And yeah, that's how it went. And in my opinion, I know it definitely depends on you, and it depends on the temperament of your baby. For me, it's actually easier to night wean while I'm still bed sharing. And I think the reason for that is because once I get them back to sleep, whether it's rocking, whether it's giving them a bottle, whether it's pacing with them, walking with them, then I don't have to worry about now doing the transfer into the crib without them waking up. I can just lay down in bed with them and they stay asleep. Also, I'm just remembering as I'm talking, we did get Charlie onto a bottle. So he went from nursing to having a bottle of milk at night and through the night. And that's just, again, like, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, but he shouldn't need a bottle through the night. It's like, well, who says who? It's so, like, that's what really soothed him and helped him fall back asleep. And so that's what we did. And for a while, he would wake up 2 to 3 times a night and have his bottle. I kept his little bottle in a cooler bag with an ice pack on my nightstand. And I would just give him his bottle through the night when he needed it. I'm comfortable doing that because we do the raw milk. And so I'm not worried about he actually has the whitest teeth out of all of us. I said to Kyle the other day, I was like, this kid's teeth are so white. And I honestly think part of it is that he's got that raw milk sitting on his teeth all the time. So anyways, that's what we did with him. And then again, like, that was another thing. I was like, hey, we got to get him to stop taking this bottle. Got to get him to stop taking this bottle. And that was just arbitrary. Like, why? Why can't he just have his bottle through the night? And I never had to go through a weaning for him. Now he'll go through like weeks of not having it. Sometimes he'll still want it. And so, yeah, that's been a good thing for him. That worked well with him. Now for Francis, again, I'm not sure when I'm going to night wean him. I probably will go till he's 2, letting him nurse at night. And we'll just see what happens with my cycle. And I don't know. I think one more important point to make with all of this is that I have always thought, and I think I read it somewhere. I was reading this book. That's what it was. I was reading a book when I was getting ready to potty train Cashin. And one of her big things about potty training is a lot of people will say, wait till your kid is ready, which I do think there are exceptions. I think in some cases that might work better, but for the majority, she talks about how there's kind of a sweet spot in your children. Oh dear. Francis just smashed a terracotta pot on the ground. But the point that the author of this potty training book was making is that there is kind of a sweet spot in children where they're old enough to understand, directions you're giving them, or building associations in the brain, whatever it is. Training, I guess, is kind of a weird word to use, but that's what it is. Where they're old enough to know how to do that, but young enough to where they haven't become, what's the word I'm looking for? They're more compliant, I guess you could say. They don't have it in their head that, they're not going to do this thing, or they're young enough to where they don't have the hard-headedness yet. Because you know how toddlers and children can be if they want to do one thing or they don't want to do something. Once they hit a certain age, they're much more willing to stick by kind of what they want to do or what they're used to. And so it can be harder to train or transition or make big adjustments. So Cash and I potty trained him at 2 and he was great. Charlie, I potty trained at 2, did not go well. I think we've revisited that at about 2.5 and it was okay, but it was so much more difficult than Cashin. And part of me thinks maybe if I would have done it with Charlie when he was actually even younger than 2, where he didn't have that kind of I think it's funny to pee on the floor, or because he knew that he needed to go on the toilet and he would just choose not to. So in my opinion, I think if I would have started him a little bit younger before he hit that, it would have been easier. So that is one thing you want to keep in mind as well, is that's part of the reason that for night nursing, I'd probably go to 2, but I would probably not want to go too far past that. 1, because I do want to have, we do want to have a lot of kids, so I do want to get my cycle back, get my hormones regulated so we can have another baby. But 2 is because I know that if I wait too long, it will actually be so much harder for them, and again, in turn, for me. So that's that. I hope that's helpful. And then I think my whole point about night weaning, I'm sure you probably expected me to have some kind of formula that you could apply, but my only big tidbits are just that every baby is so different. The timing of it for you might be different than it is for me. I know I didn't have a very specific do this, do that, here are the steps you want to take type answer, but I do hope it's helpful, because that was one of the most helpful things for me. As a second-time mother, is just realizing that you don't have to follow these arbitrary rules and routines and patterns and things, but that there are a few things that help, some expectations you can set for yourself, And I think that's helpful to hear as well. If you have any specific questions, leave them in the comments and I will definitely answer them. Yeah, that's it. That's my tidbit.